What to do when you need a break from writing, which I've been doing this morning. This is February 19th as I do the voiceover. What do? You do a voiceover for day 162 of a screenwriter's journey. I'm literally just barely keeping up with these voiceovers, as I've mentioned. Not that you care. You care about learning how to write. And yet you're watching this. Okay, let's see here. Can I help you? Okay, so they're up at the cabin. We've introduced Hogan, who is now the guy who runs the cabins. I've sort of been debating about how much backstory to give him that comes out in the script. Of course, every character you write has a backstory that hopefully you've thought about and written, or not written, but hopefully written in your notes. In my notes, I speak like you're the one who's writing when in fact I am. But this is for all of us. But it's always interesting to consider the need for the benefits of giving backstory in a script for any given character. And obviously there's several ways to do it. The lazy way is to say, oh, I'm Joe Blow. I used to be in the Navy for 15 years, and then I got married and my wife left me for a younger man. And because of that, I'm emotionally fragile. Another way is to obviously do it through their dialogue as they're going through the script, and or their actions, activities as they're going through the story. The best way is definitely the third way. Second way isn't too bad. Or, not giving them anything and just, I guess the worst is if you don't give them any backstory and what they do doesn't open up their backstory, or it can't really be justified, because their actions, you don't need to justify them because you don't know what their backstory is. But having said that, I guess you could take some guesses at it based on what they do. So I think you really, I guess, I haven't thought about this a whole lot over many, many years of writing. Maybe I have, but there is no character too small to have a backstory. And I remember when I was working on Ripple, the next great American screenplay, that there's these two guards that you can tell their backstory just from their brief dialogue, and I think it works well. As long as it's not forced and contrite, which hopefully it isn't, but who knows. At any rate, at the very least, you should consider where this person is coming from, metaphorically speaking, of course, before you put them in a scene, because, even if he or she is there just as a device to deliver some information, or for a bigger character to bounce ideas off of, or, even a guy working in a convenience store that they stop to get gas. You see some of those people and you go, wow, that's awesome casting. And what that usually means is the writer and or the director or the actor did a good job putting life into the character, no matter how small the role is. And where does that lead us? Because Hogan is obviously not a small character. He appears about halfway through the fun and games, and becomes, if not central, certainly an important character, even though his function is going to be slightly different, pretty much the same. But in the previous draft, and when I say draft, we all know what I mean, I don't think he appeared until at least halfway, and even then it was sort of like he appeared like he was going to be a very small role, which I guess you could argue he does the same in here. He's running the cabins, and you're really not sure what's going to happen if Holly and Lexi wouldn't have just made that bet, or not really a bet, but the deal, I should say. And so the next guy they meet is Hogan, and so that gets foreshadowed a little. But I think it's kind of a neat thing. So we're going through the logistics of setting up Rachel being there. The guy not really knowing much about what's going on, Hogan that is, which, I mean, is typical. Holly rented the cabin and then said, hey, this lady's going to show up. And so she showed up, and we don't know if she came alone, how she got there, or anything. And then, so we've been through all this before. I'm retreading the story to some extent, and I'm doing a little bit of rewriting, which I'm not really paying attention to because I've been pontificating here. So let's see. They go out. Hogan sees the kids. They're with us. So yeah, that gets into kind of this cutesy stuff of Hogan talking to them about why they're here, and a little, maybe not suspicious, but kind of like, oh, that's interesting. But I don't know that that's super important. Then I went back quickly to include the names of the two cabins, so they could reference them again down here. Okay, there's the total 6, but again, none of my business. I mean, it's kind of funny. At least it is to me. You don't know where his mind is going, but really, in the grand scheme of things, especially, I guess, in a screenplay, maybe more than a TV show, or if this was like a 8-episode, 10-episode limited series and you had time to let it breathe a little and get a little more in depth, or whatever you want to say, you could include something like that. But in a script where every word counts and you have to be economical, it probably isn't needed, because, I mean, it's maybe a fun thing, but it's not going to play into anything that comes. Okay. So then we get into the thing of Abby offering to go with Lexi to see her mom, and Jake gives his line. Yes, he did. Yes, I do. What's going on here? Okay, is that true? Yes, he did. She wants to go alone. So she does want to go alone. You think that's a good idea? It's her decision. That wasn't my question. Best case, worst case. Best case. She's worst case. A little bit of a problem there. So I just realized that really Lexi, in that line at the bottom of page 47, is basically not parroting, but rephrasing what Abby told her a while ago, right, about getting closure. Do I still have that line in there? If so, this certainly isn't needed. I'll have to go back and make sure it's either not too similar, or maybe I cut out that line of Abby's way back, I think, when they were in the group home in the bedroom. Gosh, in a while, this seems like ages ago when I wrote this, and I know I have been writing a lot since then, because this is day 162. I'm afraid to tell you what I'm up to now, because after I do the recording, or after I do my writing and I'm screen recording it, then I obviously save it. But then you have to go back and do something called remux, which I don't know if that's just a clever play on remix or what, but then you go back and then you have to name the files. You don't have to, but I name the file what day it is. And, I won't tell you what day I'm on as of February 19th. But Suffice it to say, I have been writing between now and then. Not every day. All right, let's see. Luggage, again, not staying the night. So a little fun kind of interplay between them. And then Hogan has that horrible line at the bottom of 45 that I need to get rid of. I think this is Virgin writing. Oh, gosh, it's just so... It's so funny how you can write something and you go, oh, how witty am I? And literally, I think the next day I came back and I was just cringing. And now, 6 weeks later, I'm super cringing. Wow, this is New Year's Day when I'm writing this, so happy 2022. Again, that was a Saturday, and what do I have to do better than get up first thing on a New Year's Day and start writing? But that's what you do, right? When you're a big-time professional writer like we are. All right, let's see here. I'll be waiting for you. I'm going to walk up with you. Ladies, TikTok. See, it doesn't need any of this. Well, I shouldn't say any of this, but gosh, it's morning time and I'm yawning. That's not good. I think because it's so sunny outside. It's killing around here. She wouldn't indicate the 4 kids. She'd indicate 3 of them. I mean, this is just all... So this is, as I said, virgin writing, and because of that, it's just going on and on. And it just doesn't need to be this long. There's just too much dialogue. And I know I complain to myself or about myself, and it's like, why can't you self-edit the first time through? But then, again, the flip side is that the more you write, the more that you understand the different characters, and you can write, hopefully, in their voice to some extent. That is not an easy thing to do. Comes with a lot of practice, and I'm still practicing. But clearly, I guess if I was a little more disciplined, you would literally have all of your index cards and you've got, 45 scenes. And because of that, you know that scene 1 can last approximately a page and a half. Scene 2 can last 2 1/4. Scene 3 can last 1. And you wouldn't break it down at first like that, but you'd know if you were saying, well, I want the catalyst / inciting incident to happen on page 12, and I've got 4 scenes, and I need to accomplish this, and then you could go through the debate and the break into 2 and the fun and games and the B story and the midpoint, and bad guys close in, all is lost, dark night of the soul, break into 3, and then the whole finale. Wow, and then final image. I am a Blake guy. You can tell that. My point is that if you were very disciplined, if I was very disciplined, I would do that a long time ago, and I would break down these scenes, and I would say, here's what needs to be accomplished in this, and I am giving myself 2 pages to do that. And then when you're writing, if you go like, oh my gosh, I've already got 2.5 pages and I haven't even got to the crux of the scene yet, what is going on, then you could do a little more editing early on. But this, from that whole TikTok, what's the best way to kill an hour? It sets stuff up, but it just doesn't need to be that long. So I need to cut that out. Cut that out, Jack. Cut that out. Or you could just get a cabin. So there's stuff that even when I read it now, I'm like kind of chuckle, but then I go, does that belong here? And that's, of course, one thing that is always hard for writers to do is cut out what they consider to be brilliant dialogue. However, it's super interesting when you send something out for a peer review, or I mean, yeah, peer review, because if you send it to a studio, they're not going to give you detailed notes. If you send it to a coverage, a script analyst who you pay, then he or she could give you a ton of notes, and it's probably going to be worth the money. But I would certainly not do that until I am super happy with the script. There's probably been a time or two. I was working with a guy on an idea that he had written a book, kind of it was a true story. His was just sort of a historical documentation of a certain happening. And then from that, we crafted a story that wove in real people, not really like Forrest Gump, but the core of the story was real. And then we put in some other elements to make it more dramatic and more commercial. But my point is, gosh, what is my point? What was the point that I started out making? It was about characters. It was about, oh man, I can't even remember. That's embarrassing. And my rule is I can't go back. But maybe when I listen back to this, I'll realize. I don't know what it is. Now I appear to have left my computer here. So let me just pause. Oh, nope, there we go. So, this is going up since something soul. And you go with, I'm sorry, Hogan, first name and last name. So this is fine, but it's too long. I think I was talking about cutesy dialogue. I remember. I was talking about an analyst. So we wrote this script. I wrote it from our joint story. It was, I still think it's a good script. It's got commercial potential. And I think I was pretty happy with it. And he really wanted to send it to a studio and trying to get someone to read it. And as a lot of people do, not really understanding the dynamics of that. So you can't blame the person. And so we sent it off to an analyst, and he had a lot of good notes. And so I don't know, I didn't pay the guy, the other person did, and it was probably $220 or whatever. This was 10 years ago already, maybe more. No, I can't remember the reason I got into the whole thing about the analyst. He had a lot of good notes just to finish the story, but it seemed like one other time maybe I paid to have some notes, and it's interesting, and I'm sure the person does this on purpose, and again, you can't blame him or her. It's like, this is very good, here's some notes, and they're good notes, and you could do this and that, and then send it back to me, and I'll charge you another whatever, and we'll keep doing it and making it better and better, which, oopsie, doing some secret work here, don't pay attention to what I'm doing. Which is fine. That's how that person earns money. And if I had an extra 1,000 or 2,000, I would definitely pay for coverage. But I never seem to have that money laying around, which is why I do peer reviews. And that's whatever. I lost that point because I was talking about it a while ago, and I had to go run and do something and come back, talk to my wife, and anyways, that's my excuse. Okay, so in this version, again, this is a virgin writing this scene. Lexi and Holly are about to go in. Jake appears and then blurts out this backstory. And I don't know at what point I thought about this. This is another one of those things where I obviously and clearly did not think about this way long ago when I was coming up with Jake's character. I think I just almost thought about it on the spot here, which, again, on the one hand, you go, well, that's not a very smart way to do it. And then on the other hand, you go, well, why should you not include a good idea if it comes to you or when it comes to you? And whether this is a good idea, that remains to be seen, but you certainly don't want to not include it because you go, well, I didn't think of it while I was outlining this, so I can't allow it to be part of the script. I don't know that anyone would use that line of thinking, but it's extremely silly. So if nothing else, having this, that Jake is studying criminal psychology, which is kind of a cool field, it would give him motivation to become a little bit more invested in this situation. And maybe the story comes out earlier, maybe it comes out in the car when they're driving over, or incidentally here or there, but at least I've got it down in the script, and so I can obviously reference that. Whether it belongs here is questionable / doubtful. Having said that, I just noticed that I am on page 51, which is getting darn near the halfway point. And so, whereas in the previous version, gosh, it's hard to believe they got that, the kidnapping, for lack of a better term. Well, no, that's not quite true. What am I doing? I was going to say the kidnapping took place at the break, but that's when Holly left, and then they got kidnapped. So, I mean, either way, it happened like in the page, I don't know, 26, 27, 28, and now basically it's going to happen at the halfway point, which again is fine, I think, because it could be the false victory, false defeat that good old Save the Cat talks about. And it is interesting. You can go to literally any movie and more or less find the beats that he talks about or that others talk about. He certainly isn't unique in kind of the system and the structure, but it is crazy how you can find them. And they're not always cut and dried, and they're not always exactly how he words them and exactly where he says they should be. But for the vast majority of movies that are made, I mean, he didn't become famous because of coincidence. And anyways, got off on a little tangent there. So just about halfway through the script, I'm sure I won't ever go back and work on anything before this, right? Because that's been my track record. Day 161. Sorry, day 162 in the can. More to come. I've got more recordings to do and catch up with myself, as one tomato said to the other. See you later.